Want to call us to order. First thing I want to acknowledge is thank you for being here, and thank you to our host for this lovely space. Am I right that C1, you're in this building? I see you on the outside, the capitals, and those are here. So it's a friendly peer network right under your own roof. That is fantastic. So I'm excited to be here. I've not been in this building before. It's very lovely. We appreciate our host, as I mentioned. I also want to acknowledge the sacrifice it took, especially for those of you coming from my direction and further. So thank you for making the drive out. I don't know if you can feel it, but I felt it the moment I walked in. I mean, it's really hard to replicate this in-person momentum and excitement. So we wanted to recreate that, similar to what we had at our last learning session. And again, I recognize that it will take quite a bit of sacrifice, especially if you're not the talent we picked for this particular learning session, but we thought fair is fair, and let's share the wealth here. Let's make the drive and journey to Tulsa this time. I'm not guaranteeing we're going to continue to do it this way. We may actually go back to the old days. So we've been seriously contemplating 2 separate learning session days so that everybody can stay closer. But for today, we're together and let's enjoy it, right? So even if it's a little bit painful, I can relate. I'm single parenting this week. My wife and my daughter are out of town, and I'll be honest with you, 2 days ago I realized, wait, I'm in Tulsa and I have to get up at 6 in the morning. What am I going to do with my 11-year-old? So it all worked out. I'm getting text messages now from my grandparents his grandparents who wanted to know, did this trip sneak up on you? And didn't, but absent-minded professor. Okay, I'm gonna go over the agenda real quick, and then I'm gonna tag team with one of my partners, and we're gonna segue. Is that possible? Segueing backwards. We're gonna go backwards a little bit in time, and we're gonna talk about our past learning session and give you an update on the sustainment work that's happening with care coordination. So Elizabeth Van Kouser is going to join me on stage here in just a minute. But before we do that, let me just quickly cover our agenda. I'm doing this right. I didn't move anything. That's important. Restrooms.
Okay, and then lights and water is in the collaborative cafe, filter forum, machine and fries. Those are the 2 main things.
Great. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Ice and water, cafe area, bathrooms. That way, I found them early. Okay. Let's try this again. Did that work? Yeah. Okay, Lisa, I lied to you. I thought I had this handled. So if I'm in
There might be 2 of them pulled up. Oh, the mouse. Okay. Yeah, I think there's multiple ones open.
different one or the same one?
No, so this is a different one. Yeah, this is the one from the, oh, I didn't know that was touchscreen. This is the one from the splash drive. This is not the newest one. I'm just gonna hit down save. Close all this out. Not that.
It's where it's gonna, it disappeared.
Okay.
Yeah, just have to have the mouse on screen.
No, where did I save yours?
if you had clicked the link, I bet you it opened in a web browser
Yeah,
rather than opening in PowerPoint. You might have to download it to PowerPoint.
yeah, I'll just download it again.
And that way it's,
Yeah.
the internet goes out or something.
I did download it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just don't know where that one went.
Maybe download it and save it to the desktop.
It should open up in Power, like, it should be one of the ones that was open.
Yeah, there it is.
Not that one, not that. Hmm.
This morning,
Okay.
right? That should be good.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, the presenter room. There you go.
Okay, read the text in there. I think we are cooking with gas now. Making learning session. Okay, let me get to the agenda. That's where we left off. Here we go. Good, okay. All right, so where are we? We are just past 9:15, right? We're about to go into this care coordination sustainment work. We're going to talk about the work we did with Unite Us. I know Unite Us is in the rearview mirror, but obviously the referrals to your network partners have not ceased, and we've been investigating without Unite Us in particular, how well are we capturing the information that we think is fairly critical to track the efficiency and the effectiveness of referrals that are heading to those same referral network partners. So Elizabeth and I'll tell you about some of that work in just a minute. We'll transition seamlessly to a discussion of our evaluation work on workforce development. So now we're fast forwarding present day, and we'll talk about the CQIs and the PDSAs that you have been working on so diligently over the last several months. I'm going to try to connect some dots there and explain how I think we can gain some synergy here with both of these activities happening simultaneously. We will then take a break, come back from the break with a fun group activity. I think we're going to plant this into all of our learning sessions moving forward. It was such a success last time, but it also seems a bit the antithesis of what we're up to here for workforce development and professional well-being if we don't make this a little bit more fun. So we're going to try to do that after the break, and we'll do the same thing with a group activity in the afternoon. We're going to get an update on some other evaluation work that's been happening with what we call Cohort 1 Coordinated State Evaluation, CSE. So this is focused on family engagement. We're winding that cycle down this year as we grow and develop our workforce development CSE activities. So we'll tell you about our health access and technology survey. We've promoted that in the past, but today you're going to hear it in greater depth, and we might even have some hot off the press data to share back. We'll then turn the mic over to our partners, a little bit more of sustained care coordination. So our LASSO partners are in the audience today. Excited to hear from them. That'll be the last presentation before we take lunch. I was told that lunch locations are some are near, but many are far. So we decided to give you a little bit of extra time to transition in and out of the building for lunch. So we'll break at 11:30 and start back right at 1 o'clock with another group activity. We have a special presentation on CSERT. So those that are not familiar with CSERT just yet, I think we did cover this on our monthly call with supervisors, but providers in particular, if you're unfamiliar with that, we're going to give you a quick overview. Our colleague from CCAN, Ashley, is with us today. Then we will do breakout sessions, and in the breakout sessions, Lisa Deshay will run us through our activities here, but it's essentially to put the finishing touches on your PDSA documents and prepare a quick share out because we're going to take a break after that session, come back. There's a survey exercise I'll explain in a minute, and then we want to hear about your PDSA ideas, as we've always done in the past. I'll have a few closing remarks, and I think it's almost assured that we will be winding down before what the agenda says here at 4:15, so I do not anticipate this taking much longer past the 4 o'clock hour. Okay, so that's the agenda. Let's dive into that first topic here, which again is sustainment of our care coordination activities. And I'm going to invite my colleague, Elizabeth Fankhauser, to the podium. Okay, I'll do a brief setup here, and then Elizabeth's going to walk you through what she's been up to over the last several months. Just a reminder that we've been looking at the referral data that you put into the ETO system now. Unitas is in our rearview mirror, as I said before. We do have all the Unitas data archived at the university, and we've been using that to keep track of referrals that you sent out during the innovation projects to our Sooner Start colleagues and to our LASSO colleagues in PCAP. For starters, Elizabeth has been diving into ETO to see, well, how similar is the information I find at ETO to what we had in Unitas, and pointing out any discrepancies. We're going to run through some of that with you today. We began with Sooner Start because that's what Elizabeth knows best. I hope you remember she was our Sooner Start liaison. But the plan is next to also look at our LASSO referrals and our PCAP referrals. So you're going to hear a similar version of this in monthly calls between now and the next learning session. At the end of this presentation, I have a little bit of sort of next action steps, if you will, in this particular project. And we have some open questions for you about where we go next. So this is meant to be an open dialogue after we run through what Elizabeth has found present today.
Great, thanks so much. All right, well, as David said, this is a presentation on the care coordination and sustainment work that I have been doing. For the agenda today, we will be going through first potential changes that I have found when looking into the ETO forms, such as items that the current ETO forms fail to consistently capture. Next, I will be talking about form optimization for both the referral tracking form and the referral follow-up form. Then we will be looking into a snapshot story, a narrative of one of the clients referred to Sooner Start through Unitas, but that is just their data that has been put in ETO. And then we'll be looking at client connections, suggestions to keep clients that might fall through the gaps, and then we'll have a discussion, as David mentioned. First is potential changes. The referral tracking form does not have a date that you can put in where a client begins services or has an evaluation. And the referral follow-up form only has the dates put on the right. The date family made contact, date family attended, placed on wait list, not eligible, and just the date service discontinued. While it was unclear to us what exactly the date family attended captures, and that may capture when a client begins services, overall, it was discussed to simply having one form be able to update the next form, like the referral follow-up form being able to update the referral tracking form so that you don't have to go back and forth with how many days you're putting in, whether or not you've updated one form but not the other, etc. It was also discussed that it may be helpful for the individual dates to have their own note sections so that you can put in any sort of details that might be pertinent to these dates that we're trying to capture. The next potential change would be the ability to easily switch back and forth from the referral tracking form and the referral tracking dashboard. Up here, we have a referral tracking dashboard, and while you're able to see the information from the original referral on the left, you can't switch back to the original referral tracking form easily. So one of the things we discussed was being able to switch back and forth And that would especially make things much easier if you could have one update the other. Next, we will be talking about optimizing the current forms. First, the referral tracking form. The first would be having consistency in the responses between service status and current status. These two service updates, there is a lot of overlap between the two. For example, service initiated ongoing in service status, and open ongoing during current status. But they can also be inconsistent. One example from a case that, like an actual case in ETO, was their service status was initial referral, but their case status was closed resolved, and there was no other update in between that. And in that example, the service status was not exactly being used to its fullest potential. And also on the referral tracking form, the current status, there are two open statuses, and we feel in order to optimize this form, it might be helpful to make it more clear what open ongoing versus open needs follow-up exactly means, and what exactly is needed for each. And one of the potentials in that could be having that clarification be put in the service status area. Next, we are discussing optimization in the referral follow-up forms. The service status on the referral tracking form and the referral status on the referral follow-up form are almost the exact same. They just have some things out of order, and then there are numbers on the service status, except minus the initial referral choice on the service status form versus the referral status form. And one thing to optimize this form might be to make sure that these are the exact same. And if we have what we talked about earlier, having the referral follow-up form update the original referral form, then having these be the exact same and in the same order or even numbered the same would be incredibly helpful and much more clear. Next, we're going to be quickly looking at a client narrative snapshot. Like I mentioned earlier, this is examples from an actual referral that was sent in by one of you all through Unite Us to Sooner Start, but all of this data was taken from the ETO. So as I mentioned, the client referral was sent through Sooner Start and through Unite Us, and the referral was seen by Sooner Start one day after this referral was sent through. In the ETO notes, it was then mentioned that the client had issues with their phone and could not answer any calls from Sooner Start, and due to this, the case was then closed in Sooner Start. This update came from ETO 1 month after the initial referral. An update 2 weeks later is that the client and home visitor had made a call to Sooner Start during a visit. The case was then reactivated, and then Sooner Start scheduled an intake with the client. We are now 1.5 months since the initial referral. Sooner Start then scheduled an evaluation for the client 1 month out. This update was 1 month after the last update and 2.5 months after the initial referral, which means the evaluation would have taken 3.5 months after the initial referral. The client, due to personal reasons, then missed the intake appointment, but planned on calling Sooner Start back. This was updated 2 weeks after the last update, 3 months in total after the initial referral. And then the only other update on this client that is in the ETO is that 6 months after the initial referral, there had been no action taken by the client. Now, first of all, the home visitor who took these notes did a wonderful job. It gave a very clear story of what exactly was happening with this client. And many people, both as client and resource coordinator at Sooner Start, have issues staying in contact. that was one of the things I heard the resource coordinators at Senior Star talk about a lot. Because of technology issues, times of work, etc., just life happening, people end up falling through the cracks. And a lot of times these people really do need these services. So that moves into, are there suggestions that we can have for better client connections? And these are just ones that I found might be personally helpful, and we would love to hear from you all if you have any suggestions. Overall, a lot of referrals fall through the cracks because both client and agencies don't know what's happening when the referral leaves their hands. Contacting the family may be difficult. Being able to have consistent ways to contact the family, whether that is phone, or if they have issues with their phone, email, or if they have issues with email, etc. But having a convenient and consistent way to contact the family definitely lets them have better client connections. The second is to be able to give a transparent update on the referral process, being able to give families possibly a rough timeline on how long a referral takes, or if they're possibly getting phone calls from a random number. I don't know about how many of you, but if a random number calls my phone, I usually don't answer it. So many clients may be missing opportunities to get services they need simply because they don't know how long or what exactly is going to happen. And the third would be having consistent communication with the agency referred to. From what I saw, home visitors, at least the ones I talked with, seem to enjoy the chat option in Unite Us and being able to get those live updates about referrals and having open communication of where exactly this referral is, so that not only the home visitor can know, but also so that they can update their client about what is going on, and that the referral isn't just sitting there being looked at by no one. Overall, just open communication through agencies and clients is one way to definitely make better connections overall. Any discussions, David?
Yeah, let me just say a couple of words, and actually I have a question for the audience, and then we'll open it up for more general discussion. Watching that back, I was kind of regretful that I didn't push up the story to sort of anchor the issue here. But I think it comes across, right, that you want what's best for these families. You're putting these referrals in. At that point, your hands are tied to a large extent, and then you're reliant on your referral partner to take the ball and run with it. And sometimes they do, and sometimes maybe they don't. And oftentimes it's hard for you to know, is it rolling or is it not? When I first thought about this sustainment project, as we were winding down the innovation work, you have to forgive me, but I was selfishly thinking as a data person, right? And I was frustrated by not being able to get all the data points we wanted, even out of Unitas. And in hindsight, if we had this to do over again, I would have designed some of the fields in Unitas a little bit differently. One thing I definitely would have done was to ask permission to get a hold of those private chats, because a lot of what I wanted, I think, were in those private chats. I will say, with our partners who may or may not be in the room, and I've told them this over the phone, be happy to explain it to them again, but I'm convinced, based on these stories, but these are not uncommon. We're finding these frequently. Maybe they're not always 6 months in duration, but they're usually a long lag between when those referrals are made and when the services are actually accessed. But I'm convinced that unless we can document these timelines better, we're not going to make significant change. And I can tell you, I've had conversations with your peers on the other side who are not fully convinced that these things are as common as we say they are. And it's hard for us to argue that unless we have the data. So I first got into this, again, selfishly wanting better data. And we wanted to go into the ETO side and see, okay, if Unitas is gone, how good can we be? I asked Elizabeth if she's going through this to pretend to be you. And that's hard to do for somebody who's not been trained as a home visitor. And it knows a little bit about what's happening with Sooner Start, because she spent, about a year of her life over there. But there's still a lot unknown, especially what's happening in the one-on-one visits with you or with your clients. So that's where I want some of the open discussion to happen. But first, I want to ask about the story that was narrated here. I don't know how old that child was, but, you know, let's say that that child is 2.5 years old. Well, if we wait 6 months, we've wasted a lot of time, right? Because now, even if you do make contact with Sooner Start, they're gonna deny it. Age limit restriction, right? So I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that, we wanna solve this and we wanna make sure, again, the families get the services they need as fast as they can. So question to you. Maybe a two-part. One is, I'd love to hear you narrate a similar story if one's on your mind. And then the other is, what is the solution here? Is there something else beyond just streamlining these forms and pursuing something like Unitas in the future? What might we be missing that could solve this? Michelle.
Y'all, like for our clients, you know, we have a wall we hit if they're not responding, right? Like, if we reach out and we don't get response or connect with them, we eventually have to say, well, we haven't. So understanding the process for all the other agencies, at what point do they have to close a case? Like, do they have to close that so early? Or is that how their process is, that it stopped at that first go around? Understanding that helps us understand what we need to connect. Do we need to save the number, you know, the name of the number on the client's phone so they know who's calling, that kind of thing. But what is the process? Why did they have to close it so quickly to have to restart anything again? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was actually gonna ask you that as well. So, maybe we do a show of hands. How many feel like they understand the referral journey with Sooner Start? Like, by the back of your hand. Do you know what's happening when you send a referral off? Do you know who's gonna field that? Do you know how soon they're gonna make a call? Do you know like what their guidelines are on what the time constraints ought to be? Make contact within 48 business hours.
Well, and similarly with Sooner Start too, there's been a lot of challenge in, particularly with Sooner Start, I feel like there's been a lot of challenge in confidentiality and not being able to follow up on that referral, like they've not been able to share. You know, Unitas was a great platform to be able to see some of those times that they called to help clients connect that phone call with that referral. But when we don't know, we can't then go in and support because we're kind of unsure, you know, where that referral's at.
Yeah, this was the vein of Elizabeth's existence. I feel like all last year was those ROIs, right? So the information lags, even with Unitas, unfortunately, the information lags until we had that ROI. And your partners with Sooner Start in particular, that was a hard line going in the sand very early on. That we're not even going to share attempted contact information. That's a barrier I think we could get knocked down, frankly. And I've actually asked a few other legal colleagues, does this make sense to you? And you know, where there's a will, there's a way, essentially. But it was hard for us to get that accomplished in the innovation project, and clearly that's a limitation here that their hands are tied sometimes too on the other end. So they might be making these contacts, but they're being told from administrators and their legal offices, do not share anything until you have that release of information.
I think another limitation is how often the home visitors see that client too, because that 1 month timeline could have been due to like a missed visit, or, you know, depending on the program model, there may be a frequency that a referral doesn't get followed up on for a 2-week time period or a month time period, because in Children First, we're not going to reach out to that client typically until that next visit. We've sent it out, you know, onto that platform, and then we're, you know, we have that 45-day window, which we're ensuring documentation, much more often it's happened before then. But I see some of those things that may have been part of the data too.
That's a great point, reading that. So when we're tracking the data now, what we'll do is go look and see how many visits have happened since that last update to the Google tracking. Yes, Kathy. Oh, good question. Did you see more than one phone number to call?
For this particular client, I will admit I did not look into that. Based on the notes I read, it seemed like this person had one phone and overall they were just having issues. But one of the things I know from working inside Sooner Start is that there isn't one number that you're gonna be called from for Sooner Start services. Each of the resource coordinators has their their own work phone that they may call you from. So putting in like Sooner Start's number, as you mentioned earlier, isn't going to be as helpful as it might be for some other places, because you could still get called by any of the resource coordinators that you could be assigned to. They each have their own individual.
The secret star to text their clients. And I mean, being in trying to call clients, we all should call and leave a message and text. Because as you said, when in inevitably you don't have calls, you don't answer. But if you have a text, you know, we inform our clients about secret star and you see our text, then they know that here's the number, here's, you know, the introduction, so I can't answer the call, I always am.
Yeah, I don't know if you really heard the question over here, like text messages, right? They soon start having that capability. I'm old enough to remember when most of you didn't have that responsibility, you could consume until you finally got it. I don't know, dude.
I will admit, it's been a couple months since I've been in Sooner Start and I've been working on this, so I do not remember off the top of my head, but that is definitely something to look into. I don't know if they have to get permission from the client before texting. So I'm sorry, but I do not have an answer to that.
I have another question of curiosity. I'm just wondering that timeline from the time that that home visitor made that call to reconnect with Sooner Star during the visit, then there was a 1 month timeline between Sooner Start scheduling again. I think that's also an area, you made a call, you made an immediate connection, you know, could that timeline be decreased from that 1 month down to that? Because you indicated it's 3.5 months since the initial call, but we've added an additional month. Yeah, if I understand.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and you don't know those details per se and what's in the record. The question was, why did that, after they actually did make contact with Sooner Start for the second time, why did it take a month to schedule that evaluation? And I don't know, is that the wait list with Sooner Start? It might be. Were there conflicts on the family's end so that it had to be pushed that far out? We don't know. Yes.
Take the first visit, we see all these forms, and one of them is text message, emails, like we sign a release. So by us, we are the ones that do the referral, they already released that text message, like permission. So I think that will be connected with.
Yeah, so silly me. I thought when we started this project that, well, maybe we can get this down to just one single ROI. You guys were already getting an ROI to show us information. Why can't they just glom onto the one that you're getting signed? Their lawyers didn't want any part of that. So again, I think where there's a will, there's a way. And I can tell you that we reached out to some other states, Missouri in particular, where they are doing it. They figured it, well, not the whole state, sorry, this was St. Louis, but in St. Louis, that's been PAT. They have figured out a way to do this. One ROI, and they're able to exchange information both ways.
Okay, so I have a question about, I just went on the website to see the referral process for Sooner Start, and we put in the referral, like, it would be our home visitor information as the referring partner. Can they not reach out to us if they can't contact the client? Is that an option for Sooner Start?
I don't think so. I don't know. It is not something I've personally heard of, but that doesn't mean it might not happen. But I am unsure, but I don't think it's likely.
We really pushed hard for them to do that. It was clearly a gray area for them, and when they're trying to make contact and they can't, but we really try to encourage them. If you have a phone number that's not working, please reach back out through Unitas to the home visiting provider to see if they can help. I don't know how often that happens in Sooner. I heard more of that feedback from our LASSO colleagues and from PCAP towards the end. I know for a fact PCAP towards the end was attempting to do that. But wouldn't that be nice too? And that's where I feel like there's gotta be a way, and it ought not require an ROI to say, I'm having trouble contacting the family. Just making you aware, you know. You sent me a referral.
I also think client readiness plays a part in your timeline too. Because I think families with that kind of timeline can change their readiness towards receiving a service at Center Star as well.
Yeah, client readiness is a good point. As we think about that, I think both Elizabeth and I were sort of going through this. How much of this delay is the family just kind of being lukewarm about the referral and maybe telling them home visit what they want to hear in the session, right? It's hard to know. Yeah, that's a really tough thing to judge. Yeah. Lisa.
What do you think about having someone from Center Star come to one of our monthly meetings and answer some of these questions? Because clearly there's a lot going on that we don't have answers for.
I love the idea, yeah. So pick up the fun. Yeah, I think I'm sure we can get somebody to do
I'm
that.
hardly suggesting that to keep you on respect.
It's
Or I have an experience. So I had a case.
They're all-
You know that.
So I had a case similar to this one when it was hard for them to get connected to Center Star. And so by following the Unite Us information, that was finally shared, I was able to actually contact with someone who it seemed like was higher up at Center Star, and they said, well, oh my goodness, yes, I'm looking at this, but we've been, had a hard time, they still want services, and she immediately got in contact with the family, because I was able to share, the concern and the interest outside of, but through following the tracking, and so even just like that follow-up number, or if you've done this, you can't get a hold of someone, here's this person, she was immediately willing to share with me, and connect with me to get that vehicle services.
Thank you for sharing that. So these are the stories we want to hear. So I need to make sure I get your name before we leave. We had a few of these from the qualitative interviews that we did. Right? We didn't have the resources to ask every one of you individually, but we heard from a lot of you that, yeah, it worked, especially that private chat thing. We heard that in qualitative interviews, and I was kicking myself for not getting that in the legal agreement because I didn't have access to it. But no, that's wonderful to hear. And, we thought originally that having a conduit here, a communication system that both of you can access would be part of the solution. There are pros and cons to it, obviously. The double data entry thing was not pleasant, and we had to figure out a way around that. Okay, Lisa's gonna kill me if I don't move on. The other Lisa, so let's wrap up the discussion now. Just know where this is going away. So we're gonna be continuing to work on this all the way through the end of the calendar year, and every monthly call, we're gonna give you similar report outs. Oh, the other thing I wanted to advertise is, like this one visitor in this particular case scenario we ran through, the notes were really good, and there are a lot of them like that. It takes a long time to read through those. We can do it like for the 70 referrals that were a part of the innovation project. We can't do that for the thousands of referrals that you guys have in the ETO system. And so, big caveat here, IRB pending. What we want to do is take those notes and put them in a secure computing environment with AI and see if AI can read some of this out to us and try to extract a lot of this information that we've been dying to get our hands on. So a lot of it's in those notes, and we're going to see, we salvage what we have in the past. What I want you to be thinking about, and what that came across in Elizabeth's conversation now is, and this is the audience I'm talking to right here, what can we do in the forms of present day to get the information we want that's going to be useful to us, especially if we want to justify some changes to relationships with partners. And what can we do to minimize burden? So it wasn't maybe framed in that way when we went through it just now, but I want you to know that's what we're thinking about. We're hoping to look out for your best interest. I hope that's what we're doing. So things like the case closure, no, case status, and then the referral status. Can those be connected? And certainly the referral status that exists in the originating referral form and then the tracking form. Can those kind of communicate with each other? Or do we have to be going back and forth to update each? I don't know if it made sense that in that dashboard, Elizabeth walked me through it the other day, I'm sure see some heads nodding, that it's wonderful. You get to see the original referral tracking form information, nice brief summary of it right in front of you alongside all those referral tracking forms. And you can go into each of those referral tracking forms, you can't get into the original one. So if I've got to update the original one, well, that's a pain. Maybe we can get around that though, if you can just pipe in what's in the referral tracking form back into the original. So if you think of other ideas like that too, send us our way, and then we'll do some arm twisting over here at this table in the back, and see what we can make happen.
That would be helpful, but like with the goal passport, and we click on that, and then we have to put our updates, you know, when we make contact and stuff. Then you can change the status, where it's still say started, in progress, all that. I wonder if there would be a way to update that for the referral tracking, where we're still putting our updates of like, you know, touch base with the client, she lost the number, or whatever, you put updates, but then you can see the status of that referral, just like you can see the status.
Yeah, so you do it far better than I do, and yeah, that's what I was trying to say, you said it a lot better than I did, but yes, exactly. So there's basically one stop shop, one place you need to go, and you update that one place, and it's easily accessible. And then when it's updated there, it gets updated everywhere else, if it even needs to show up anywhere else. All right, let's move on to continue the discussion, and a break, if you have things to share back with us, or just stick around all day, I'm here too. Others from the team are here, feel free to take us aside. Oh, if you have stories like the one I just heard, let me know, because we're writing a paper on the innovation project. Some of those qualitative stories we heard are already in there. I want to add yours if I get your permission. And if you have other stories like that to share, let us know, good and bad. We want to make sure both sides are equally well proportionally represented. How about that? Okay. Gotta get a move on here, so I can hold my promise to you to get out early. Okay. Workforce development in Oklahoma, MIECHV, and then evaluation and learning collaborative synergy. I've sort of been inching my way towards this topic in the monthly calls over the last 6 months or so. I know the providers are not always on those monthly calls, so let me maybe not start from the beginning, but give you a Cliff Notes version of where we've been. As I think everybody is aware, while you're working on these CQI networks, we're often behind the scenes, and maybe not sometimes in front of the scenes, doing evaluation work on a similar topic. So we did this back when you did your father engagement project. We did it for the developmental monitoring project. Oftentimes what we're doing is collecting data from your clients so that the client voice is heard about this topic, while you're telling us sort of the worker side of it. This is what's happening in terms of the operation, the service operation. We want to do the same thing with this go around of the Learning Collaborative. And our funding mechanism for these evaluations has changed a little bit in recent years. So CSE is an acronym you're going to see a lot. It's Coordinated State Evaluation. As the name implies, it means we're going to do this evaluation in partnership with other states who've decided they want to work on this topic too. And it turns out there are, hold me accountable here. Is it 6 others? Yeah, there's 7 total, 6 other states. I haven't had all my coffee yet, so I can't tell you who those 6 states are, but there are 6. We're number 7. I think 5 of those states, maybe 4 of those states have been working on this area, this topic, for the last 4 years. And in the last 6 months, since we joined their what's now called cohort 2, they've been bringing us up to speed. Hey, these are all the things we learned about workforce development in our state with our home visiting programs. We just crossed a milestone for this new evaluation project yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Wow, time flies. We sent in a final version of our evaluation protocol, and I want to give you a summary of what we have planned. Now, it's not set in stone, although a lot of the activities for this year are going to be hard for us to change, but it is a essentially 3.5 year process from now. And things that happen late this year and certainly in those final years are subject to change. And I suspect they will change based on what you learn and you tell us in your CQI projects. So we tried to write the evaluation plan in an agile way so that we can react to what we're learning together as a broader network. And I think there's a lot of synergy to be had here in both directions. So we're going to learn from you, and we're going to try to adapt what we're doing on the evaluation side. All the while, in our monthly calls and in our learning sessions, we're going to feed data back to you. Often it's your own data. This is a unique one for us, right? We always get data from you, but this time we're taking it to another level. You're our participant subjects here, not your clients necessarily, at least for our primary 2 aims, as you'll see in a moment. And we want to feed that information back to you as quickly as we can so that you can learn from it. And that might impact maybe not this PDSA, but maybe the PDSA you develop 6 months from now, or the one that you develop a year from now. As you'll see in just a moment, this learning collaborative has a very noticeable alteration from years past. So we have always stuck to the National Coin Framework model of doing, I sometimes say cycle, they call them phases, but 3 PDSA cycles, right, for a topic area, and then we move on. There will be a fourth. It's unique. And that fourth one's going to last longer than the other 3 and longer than any we've ever worked on before. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. Okay, why workforce development matters. Some of this is me kicking the tires on talks I'm going to be giving in the future. So I know that like you're well, of course it matters. Well, you don't have to convince me. So yes, I'm preaching to the choir. But you help me massage this language and just know that I'm going to be explaining this to several people over the next 4 or 5 years. Burnout and turnover. These are key service challenges. We've looked at this on and off since I've been involved with your network for the better part of a decade and a half now. And turnover is significant. I don't think that's shocking to anybody in the room, but I can't remember what the average length of a worker is, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 years, which in the grand scheme of things is not that long if you think about these as being career positions, right? So maybe we need to rethink what a worker position is. Is it a career position? Is it not? If it is, what might we need to do to enhance it so that we can increase the retention of our workforce? So these are key service challenges, sort of living in a lot of the work that we're going to be doing on the evaluation side. And as I saw in your PDSA, it's clearly on your mind as well. We do think, and others have told us, including yourselves, that professional well-being is sort of the linchpin here. So if we can enhance professional well-being, we think that sort of everything's going to fall in line a little bit, right? People will be happier with the jobs that they perform. They'll want to stay with their job perhaps longer. Ultimately, as you see in this third bullet point here, we think this is going to affect service quality. And it's not a huge surprise here either. We've looked at this one oftentimes in the past. Many of you have been part of helping us inform questions of, for example, how long do clients stay with programs after their original provider leaves? And the answer turns out to be not very long, usually less than 6 months. So can we make a dent in that? That's part of what we want to know and part of what we'll be looking at. This has heavily influenced the evaluation plan that we've been working on. You'll see in the next slide here, it slipped into our key drivers diagram, not by accident. So this is sort of a theoretical framework here of how we are currently thinking about workforce development in home visiting. It was developed by the MIECHV group. You can find this document online. So there's a citation here at the end, and you'll get these slides as you always do. It's a good read. I would encourage anybody that wants a little bit more depth of understanding in workforce development specific to home visiting to go to this document. And there's even a brief executive summary version of this. Right at the center, I don't know how well you can see the slides at your seats, but right in the center is what we think are these primary drivers of the service outcomes here: job satisfaction, psychological well-being, job meaning and fulfillment, self-efficacy, and confidence. So the authors of this particular work felt that these were the core concepts related to professional well-being. And if we can enhance any one of these, we can improve home visitor level outcomes, program level outcomes, and ultimately family level outcomes. You see on the left-hand side a lot of things that are, broad constructs that are believed to influence those dimensions of professional well-being, like resources and supports, flexibility and autonomy on the job, relationships and connections, compensation. It's hard to get around that one. I do know and realize and respect the amount of sacrifice it takes not just to be in this room, but to be in your position, right? In the helping position, period. Like all workers in the helping position, the vast majority of you, you're not in it for the paycheck, but you can't do it for free, or at least most of us can. So compensation is a topic we want to hear from you about, and it's going to creep into some of the data that we collect on the evaluation side, and potentially maybe it's something that you explore in your PDSAs. Compensation, validation, and recognition. These are clearly things that influence professional well-being. And then the last thing in red here, because it's more of a negative influence, the job stressors and the demands of the job. So these are all things that influence professional well-being. Ultimately, on the outcome side, what do we look at? Well, with the home visitors themselves, how does this affect their personal well-being and how they view themselves? An individual's work life largely defines who they are, not completely, but largely does. And that goes a long way in terms of determining your personal well-being. So these are some issues we'd like to look at, like your professional well-being. How does that spill over into your overall general personal well-being? How does it spill over into the level of engagement on the job here and the performance on the job? If we can improve professional well-being, does that improve engagement in the job and performance in the job? At the program level, these things all sort of domino into one another. So the quality of the service delivery, we think, is related to overall professional well-being within agencies, the productivity and the efficiency, the workforce retention, as we talked about. And then finally, at the very end, a not well-studied topic, it turns out, but something we're very interested in. And it's how does professional well-being and these home visitor level and program level outcomes influence family level outcomes? So we're going to start with you all. We're all humans, right? And so we want to see healthy work environment here. What does it look like where you work and live largely? And how are you functioning? And then eventually we're going to look at how does that influence the lives that your clients are living? Just at a glance, and we'll be going over this in more detail as we go. And as I said, we're going to share data back with you. So each one of these aims actually have multiple questions that we're trying to answer. I've skipped those for today, with the exception of one major one that relates to the alteration to your learning collaborative. Aim 1, we're trying to identify and describe workforce supports. So it's highly descriptive. And we're going to do a lot of qualitative work in the first year to just find out what is it about your work environment that seems supportive, or maybe the opposite, not so supportive. And we're going to cast that net widely. So I dare to say not one of you will not be asked to provide some input to us on this topic. It's voluntary. You don't have to reply, but we're going to ask you. Aim 2, examine the links between those supports and professional well-being. You're going to see this PWB thing show up a lot. So that's our shorthand notation for professional well-being. And retention. Retention is a specific call out with Aim 2. We're going to be looking at that data. It's hard to do sort of cause and effect analyses in short-term periods. And even a learning collaborative the last 18 months is relatively short-term for an outcome like retention. As I said before, I think it's between 2 and 3 years on average worker turnover. So we don't have that kind of time, but we can certainly go back in time and see how long did providers last, and what is sort of the general well-being of the present day workforce there? Any associations? These are things we're going to look at in Aim 2. Quick call out, and I'm going to come back to in a second, that what we'd like to do is have your CQI network and the evaluation culminate in this system level enhancement, where you pick a collective strategy that you want to pursue. So a little bit more of a narrow focus than what you've been allowed to do for your first PDSA and what you will be allowed to do for your second and your third. When we get to the fourth one, we want to choose a common topic. Now, how you implement that and maybe how you enhance it, lots of freedom there. But we want to choose a strategy. Just for sake of example, let's say, because I know somebody put this in their current PDSA, and we've had some of the other states involved in this cohort work on this topic of mental health consultation or burnout consultation. So I know one of you is looking at CSERT, and we've got a CSERT presentation this afternoon. That could be an example of a common strategy we all adopt. We decide, okay, let's all buy into that. We're going to go through the training. And then for almost a full year, we're going to evaluate what impact does that have on your workforce. So we'll do some pre-assessments of your workforce before that strategy begins. And then while you're doing the strategy, we'll get some mid-level information at the end. We'll see what difference did it make. Coordinated, I mentioned before, we're not the only states doing this. So when you hear data coming from us, not always will it be our own. We're going to share back the data we learned from the other 6 states working on these topics as well. It might be helpful for you to know that there are 2 shared questions we all have to pursue, and those relate to our first 2 aims. So generally, all states are going to be looking at workforce supports. What do we mean by that in the context of home visiting? And then links between those supports and professional well-being. That's also a shared question we're all looking at. So we'll share back what we learned locally, and then we'll tell you what our other states are learning as well. There is one common measure. I announced this at our last monthly call. It's called the ProQL5. You're going to get familiar with that this afternoon. That's the brief survey segment on the agenda today. We'd like to collect that data from you in an anonymous fashion. For now, at least anonymous. So we hope you're truthful. And all we're really trying to do today is get a baseline estimate of where is quality of life for this workforce, this learning collective. Evaluation timeline. I said this earlier, I think that in 2025, let's see, the dates are kind of funky here. So this is federal fiscal year. If you don't know what that is, I don't blame you. I always have to think about it hard and fast too. So state fiscal year starts in July, but federal fiscal year starts in October. So it goes from 1 October to the end of a September, and it's always kind of 1 year ahead. So 2025, we're in federal fiscal year 2025. It began October of 2024. It will go through September of this calendar year. So we're just past the halfway point now. And in what remains, the final quarter of that year, essentially, we will be trying to get all of our methodology approved, and we're going to start some of our data collection. It'll be qualitative to begin with. So we'll be inviting many of you to participate in individual interviews. A lot of you have done it in the past, so it'll work very similarly. We'll do it over Zoom. You'll have to enroll. We're trying to make sure you get compensated if that's possible at your agency. It's not always, but we will try to do that as best we can. If we can't directly compensate you, we'd like to compensate your agency. So more details on that when it comes time to recruit, and then that's just a few months away. 2026, so this will start this calendar year, but in October, right, and go all the way through September of 2026. We're going to continue working on that qualitative data and that AIM-1, trying to make sure we comprehensively cover all the workforce supports that we think are related to professional well-being. We will gradually transition over to AIM-2, and we will focus on how do those supports impact professional well-being. AIM-1 culminates in a survey that's more quantitative, not qualitative. So we'll do that towards the end of federal fiscal year 2026. And we're going to try to kill a lot of birds there with that same stone. So in that survey, we're going to ask you about workforce supports that we heard in qualitative interviews to see, does it exist at your agency? And if so, how long? And then we want a little bit of your subjective perception of what impact does this have? There'll be some implementation questions about each of those supports embedded in that too, because just having the support may not be enough. It really needs to be implemented with a certain level of quality. We will be assessing your professional well-being in that survey. And so one of the things we're looking at with AIM-2 there is the association, and that's how we're attempting to accomplish that. 2027, we will continue doing some of that survey administration. 2027, by the time we get there, we will be winding down your third PDSA work, and we will be having dedicated conversations about that fourth PDSA and a common strategy. So one of the main focuses of fiscal year 2027 will be narrowing in on what will that common strategy be that we all then try to rapidly test in 3 new cycles of PDSAs for a fourth, sort of a packaged fourth PDSA project. 2028, we transition over to AIM-3, and this is where the very end of that conceptual framework I showed you before, we want to hear from clients. So we'll be collecting client voice in 2028. It'll start a little bit in 2027. We're going to ask them things like, if you had to guess, what is the professional well-being of your provider? And they're going to give us their subjective assessment. And we want to know, number one, how accurate is that? And we're going to try to gather that information from you all at roughly the same time. Because if there's a disconnect there, then I think that's an issue we might need to resolve, especially if the other thing we want to look at is if that perception of providers' well-being influences their engagement in the program. So that's something we're going to look at very strongly. And not just how long did they stay with the program, but like, what are they really doing while they're with you? How engaged and bought into the program are they? Learning collaborative work, I gotta hurry here, but nothing new for these first three PDSAs. We're gonna stick to the 6-month cycle. So your PDSA that you just developed after today, many of you are gonna start it, maybe you already have. We'll go for 6 months. We'll get back together somewhere and talk about what you learned, and then you'll build the next one. And we'll do that for the full 3 cycles, right? While we're doing that 3rd cycle, we're gonna think about this 4th one, and you're gonna have a longer time to work on that. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say for now. The 4th, I'm calling it the 4th PDSA, but in a way it's the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. So again, we're going to have a little over a year actually to work on that common selected topic. What we'd like to do is have everybody work on it broadly, and then very narrowly, we'd like you to make some alterations to how it's implemented, or maybe even, sort of hard to envision until we know what that strategy is going to be. But you're going to have some freedom there to sort of test out what it looks like at your local agency, your local program. And we want to learn from each other. Okay, here's a common strategy. It seems to be generally effective. It's really effective when we add such and such, or it's not very effective or not as effective when we do it this particular way, right? Those are the types of things we want to concentrate on in the PDSAs embedded within what I'm calling here a 4th PDSA. I've covered all this. These are the 6-month intervals of learning sessions and your first 3 cycles, and then that 4th one. All right, let me end with some good news. I think it's good news. I hope you do too. The work that you're doing, or that we are doing collectively, is being recognized. And we were notified a month and a half ago by, they call themselves TARC. So it's the Technical Assistance Resource Center that is contracted out from HRSA, who runs MIECHV. And they guide us as evaluators on the projects that we do. They're there to lean on for advice. When we submit a protocol, they weigh in on that protocol to tell the feds essentially whether they think it's a good idea or not, or they ought to change this or that. We have monthly calls with them, and then periodic email conversations. And then they also moderate those cohort discussions with other states who've chosen our topics. They reached out to us a month and a half ago. Oh, sorry about the formatting here. And said, we'd like to do a special piece on Oklahoma. And we're really intrigued by this model that you have adopted of doing CQI projects on a topic, all the while in parallel working on evaluations on that topic. And so John and I sat through an hour-long interview, and they wrote up a piece, and I believe it's coming out next week. So June 2nd is what I was told. I don't have that verified yet, but here's some quotes from an early version of that we saw. Oklahoma's CQI collaborative model exemplifies a strong culture of inquiry where learning and adaptation are embedded in everyday practice. Evaluation findings aren't treated as endpoints or static reports. They're actively translated into change ideas that teams test, reflect on, and refine. Just as importantly, CQI insights ignite interest in evaluation topics and feed into ongoing evaluations, fostering a continuous cycle of learning. So this is all part of a resource that they are putting out, trying to convince more programs to not just collect data, but reflect on data, have data affect change. And the stories they have seen come out of this group right here, they thought were exemplary, and they wanted others to know about it. So they're going to try to use that to convince others to take as deep a dive as you have been for so many years now. So I realize I'm sort of a part of that, so maybe there's a humble brag here, but you're doing all the work, right? I often feel like we're just here to moderate. So I say this sincerely. Congratulations on that recognition. And this is not the first time. This is just the most recent. All right, where do we want to end up? Well, we want to build a richer picture here. And I like this model. I've often joked, especially with the feds, that I can't chew gum and walk at the same time. So therefore, I'm going to focus my evaluation on the same topic as the CQI network. But I do think that there have been enough success stories now of how these two have informed each other that it is worth continuing forward. I hope you feel the same way. And as I said before, it's a two-way street. So what you're learning in this network, we want to learn and then be agile with our evaluation plans, particularly in future years. And then vice versa. We want to collect data that's meaningful to you. So please bear that in mind. And if you feel like, boy, I really want to know such and such, but I can't do it. I don't have the time or the energy. or resources, I should say, to do it, in my agency, or maybe my agency is too myopic and I wanna know really how's it affecting others. Let us know those things, and maybe we can build that into the evaluation and then feed it back to you, and as I said, we can learn in a richer way than we would otherwise, working independently. Okay. This is gonna, so this is.
No, you're actually doing very well. Yeah. They're actually going to go on break early, but I was going to say, just tweak one thing. The first PDSAs had been designed to be a shorter cycle. And so remember. We talked about that. And so the first one, it will will end in September, because I think you designed your projects not to be 6 months. And so things that can be accomplished in a shorter time.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. That's true. I think most of you, not all of you. What we'd like to do, this will actually reflect what we plan to do with the fourth PSA. And it follows more closely, I guess it aligns more closely with the national POINT framework that we have adopted. So POINT is just the terminology they use to describe the methods that we've been instilling and you've been working on for several years now. They really like your PSAs to be brief, like as in 6 weeks. And they want you to get through 6 weeks of data collection and testing and intervention, see what you learn, and then just slightly tweak it based on what you learn. And then do the process again with a tweak. 6 weeks, collect data, and then change it. Realizing that this is a new chapter for us. We've often in the past, like father engagement and developmental monitoring, chosen topics I think were a little bit bigger in scope than what the national POINT folks have done. And so it didn't make full sense for us to adopt that extremely rapid test change cycle. This phase, because so much is unknown, we wanted to give you that liberty, and I hope that got communicated through the rounding calls, especially with Lisa and team. And it looks like reading your PDSAs, preparing for today, that a lot of you are focused on sort of data collection in a way around workforce development, because you want to know what does it look like, and that's 100% appropriate. And what we will encourage you to do in the next 6 to 8 weeks is think about, okay, what are we learning from this? What more might we need to know? And that might need to be the next phase or the next cycle, of this phase of CPI for you. Or you might be bold enough and ready to actually test something out that changes your system. So anyway, those small changes totally appropriate for this first. I'll try to get the terminology correct. I should be saying phases. So 6-month phases, multiple cycles. Many of you have adopted that strategy. When we get to that fourth PDSA phase, it will work the same way. How's that? It does say Q&A. I forgot about that. So I don't want to stall for much longer, but any reflections, feedback? Ready to bolt through the door? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm happy to. So we tried to do this for years now with your qualitative interviews, and it works for most, but not all. But we do have budgeted. Be careful with my terminology. So everything we do on the evaluation side is reviewed by an institutional review board, an IRB. You might be familiar with that, but it's a regulatory body whose responsibility is to look out for the participants from an ethical standpoint, a privacy standpoint, and so forth. So everything we do is vetted by IRB. Lucky me, it's actually vetted by multiple IRBs. So it goes through the health department IRB, and then it has to go through the university IRB, and they don't disagree with each other. But we get through it. All right, so I have to be really careful because I think the health department's fine with that term, Kathy, but I definitely know my university IRB won't let me say incentive. So you didn't do that word for me. Compensation is what we often refer to. For the qualitative interviews historically, depending on the length of them, it could range anywhere from $50 to $75. So if we're allowed to give you some sort of monetary compensation for your participation, we will. And there's sort of two steps to that. That if we're allowed to, IRB has to approve it, which almost certainly they will. And then there's state laws that have unfortunately handicapped us in the capital. So some of you are in agencies where you're not comfortable taking that compensation. Our workaround for that traditionally has been to provide something to the agency, not to an individual, but to the agency. And that has usually worked. Maybe there's some exceptions there, but we want to compensate you. It takes time and effort and energy to do this stuff. And I feel like it's above and beyond your job, even though in this case, we're really trying to influence and improve your job. But still, it's not written in your job description that this may qualitative interviews, I imagine, with evaluators from the university. So we want to compensate you, and we're going to work hard to try and figure out a way to do that. So supervisors, be on the lookout for emails from me and maybe some phone calls, especially if you're concerned about how that compensation will work. Any other questions? We'll do the same thing for the surveys. Qualitative interviews are time consuming and lengthy, and it's not just the interview itself. We transcribe those. So the audio recorded, and we have a company. It's the same company that for our academic medical center that transcribes all of our clinician audio recordings. So they transcribe it, and then we have teams, many of whom are here, who read those word for word and quote them, try to find themes essentially of what they heard from one person to the next, and then that gets analyzed and summarized in qualitative results. So qualitative interviews, I've said all that just to please don't take it personally. We randomly select you, but we can't do qualitative interviews to everybody just because it takes so long to do that process. But the surveys can be faster, those are structured, and all of you will get an invite to do a survey. Oh, some point, hey, this afternoon. Yeah. Third question. All right, so I was still early by 5 minutes maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, when do you want me?
Let's come back at 10:40.
Okay, be back by 10:40. And remember, ice and water. Cafe. That way.
Families who have been engaged in home visiting, who are categorized as strong engagers, meaning they have great engagement in their work with you. Right now, we're kind of using a proxy of attendance. Or they were weak engagers, meaning they enrolled in home visiting but didn't have strong engagement per their attendance record. We're also meeting with non-clients, so folks who were eligible for home visiting but did not receive it. Right now, we're doing that through the WIC rosters, but we may also add recruiting some families from senior pediatrics. So we're hoping to have at least 50 families in each group participate in the survey. We've already got enough strong engagers, which makes sense. These are folks who are probably engaged, answering their phones. They were quick to do the survey. And we're partway there with weak engagers and trailing behind us a little bit with non-clients. This survey is going to be it needs to be complete by September. So this will be in the slides that you'll get provided at the end of the learning session. So I won't read them all to you now. I went over them at the monthly call, but you'll have access to them. I want you all just to have a reminder of what our research questions are as they pertain to health access. But what I will highlight is what we're asking them about. So we're asking families about their location, where they're at, and we're hoping to do some kind of geocoding on where they're living and whether that's related to what services they can access. We're asking them about their comfort discussing questions and concerns with service providers. For those who are in home visiting, that would be with their home visitor. We're asking about the cultural competence of their service provider, about their engagement in home visiting, for example, why they enrolled, what their overall experience was like, any possible experiences of discrimination that they might have had based off their family's characteristics, such as language their family uses, their level of education. And that one's across settings, so it's within home visiting, but also at medical offices, childcare, any kind of places they're receiving services for their family. And then last, the frequency of those types of discriminating experiences. So I wanted to give you just a preliminary look at what folks are reporting. So this is from 61 respondents who did engage in home visiting. And this is collapsed across strong and weak engagers. So it's kind of an initial look. Please bear in mind this data is very preliminary, we're not done collecting. But what they said in terms of sources of discrimination in the domain of home visiting. One takeaway is that of over 70%, 72.3% reported experiencing no discrimination or lower quality of services due to different characteristics of their families in home visiting. So by and large, families feel very accepted and engaged with the work you're doing with them. Of those who did report that they've experienced discrimination, the most endorsed reasons were their income level, their insurance status or type, their family size, or what language they used. This is also a preliminary look at the top reasons that families said they engaged or chose to enroll in home visiting. And most of it is related to child development. So they reported, if you can, I know it's hard to see the graph, but this is from a 0 to 100%. All of these are above the 60%, so the majority endorsed this as a reason. They were able to select among 24 possible reasons and select all but 5 of them. So a vast majority say they did home visiting to learn about activities they could do with their child, to receive information about child development, to get that support from somebody else for infant or toddler care, and to make sure their child was meeting their developmental milestones. All right, again, this will be in your slides. I won't read them to you, but we do have 3 research questions related to technology use and engagement, especially as it pertains to how they parent. So what are we asking about? Well, we're asking them where they get advice about parenting, and across those sources, how useful are they? We're asking how frequently they use a variety of online resources for parenting, such as looking up family-friendly events that are happening in their community, or accessing school information online. We're asking them about their attitude toward technology, and especially their attitude toward using technology for parenting support, and how willing they would be to use a parenting app if it was freely available. All right, this is a busy slide, but this is showing you all the different potential sources of parenting advice we asked them about, ranging from their own parents, all the way to educational gains. And by and large, we see that most families use all of these resources. So they're accessing all kinds of things to learn about how to parent. And this is showing you how useful they believe that is. And so across the board, they find all sources useful. The lowest endorsed in terms of how useful they might be are friends, neighbors, TV, and social media. So those are rated to be less useful. The most useful was child care providers. All right, and then last but not least, asking them how willing they would be to use a free parenting app as a source of parenting information, over 83%, so that they would want access to something like that. All right, well, I hope that's helpful just to get some insight into what's happening with the Health Access and Technology Survey. I do see a couple of questions. Sorry, can you say that?
Is that the code of the location?
Yes, we're using zip code. Yeah, thank you. So we are currently working on our Spanish version, we will, and we're gonna add recruitment slots, even though we've already met for strong engagement. We're gonna try to recruit 25 Spanish speaking families. It's already been translated in Spanish. We're just waiting for that back translation and anticipate receiving that soon. So we're asking about their willingness to use an app. We're not suggesting one yet. Yeah. But there are some available free online that are in Spanish. And that is another project I'm sure you'll hear about in upcoming monthly calls. Okay. Well, I'm going to pass it over to our Lasso partners, Kaisha Williams and Pilar Vinci.
Thank you. You guys are awake, right? Kind of, sort of. Okay. Well, we do have a lasso table set up back there, and the chocolate has arrived. So stop by, pick up some chocolate, look at our brochures, know that we are available. We haven't left you. We are still here with you. I'm Pilar Thanshite, and I don't know what I'm doing up here.
I left you in the lurch. Sorry, let me pull up here so it's. Sorry. Where do you have it saved? Sorry.
Here, and then I have it on the flash drive. Yeah, there you go. So, and probably should, yes.
Perfect.
Perfect. I'm not tech savvy. That's why I surround myself with, brilliant people that are. So it can make me look better. This is Keisha Williams. She'll be taking over for me in just a second.
It's not sharing on,
Oh.
it's sharing on here, but not on Zoom, which I'm recording. So
Oh,
we wanted to share on Zoom too.
thank you for allowing us some time to be with you guys here today. We want to continue to be a part of this collaborative. And as part of that, I wanted to kind of let you know that the number of referrals that we have received thus far this year has decreased greatly. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. But I do want us to fix whatever might be the issue. And I understand that you guys have like tons of stuff to do. And to quote a fellow Oklahoman by the name of Sweet Brown, ain't nobody got time for that, right? You guys have millions of things to do, and while you do your home visits, I know that, and I relate to that. Oh, but before I get to that, let me introduce our team. If I can have our attorneys stand up. Our lasso attorneys are at that table over there. Our Oklahoma City attorney is Alexis Tackerden, and our Tulsa attorney is Candy Shelton. So whenever you guys send the referrals, that's who gets to work on your referrals, okay? So I blame them for everything. And Keisha Williams, she is our medical legal partnership program developer. She oversees, along with April Merrill, everything that we do in the medical legal partnerships. And this is actually one of them. And then, so you guys get 2 dedicated full-time attorneys with this project, and you guys get me half-time. Sorry about the halftime portion. So the issue on here that I wanted to kind of bring up from your perspective is how to continue making lasso referrals when there's so many other things to do. I would tell you that our goal, what I would propose is that you offer lasso services to all MIECHV participants and complete the referral in less than 10 minutes. I'll give you a couple of seconds to get all the laughter out of your system, roll on the floor if you must, but I believe that it can be accomplished. Okay? Let me share how. I believe that you can send a referral using no forms, no assessments, no release of information, well, outside of Unitas, if you chose to do a referral through that platform. And I will be doing a release of information with each of the people that you refer to us at my end. I want you to consider asking one question to evaluate if your client is interested, would like to know more, would consider talking to us. If they say yes, no, maybe would like to know more. If they say no, then leave them alone, please. Don't be like me, pestering them all the time. But if they say yes, or maybe, I don't know, could they help me with this? Stop them right there. Or if they want to tell you their life story and ain't nobody got time for that, well, in that case, hold your questions, write them down. Let me connect you with somebody that can answer those questions for you and send an encrypted email to myself, Pilar Thenscheid, or you can send it to me and the attorney that you know works in your area, and we'll take care of them for you. So step 1 for this new referral process. Ask your MIECHV participants one of the following questions, or you can create your own. I know you guys. You guys are super creative. I've seen what you guys can come up with. So I know that you can come up with your own if you want to. But here's 2 sample questions. One, as a participant in our program, you have access to a free consultation with a legal representative. Would you like me to connect you with them? That's where they can say yes, no, maybe, not sure. And that's it. The other question you could possibly use is, would you like to receive a free consultation with a legal aid representative regarding any needs or concerns you may have that they may be able to assist you with? Or you can phrase it however you like. Step 2, if a participant is interested or wants to know more, just send an encrypted email to myself. There's my email address with the client's full name, address, email, and phone number, because I will call, text, email to try to get a hold of them. Okay? If I'm not able to do it, if I'm too busy, I will assign or ask one of the attorneys assigned to work with them, to reach out to them using the same method. Call, email, send a text. Okay? Step 3. Fooled you. There is no step 3. That's it. So do you believe you can do that in less than 10 minutes? I believe so. So let's try to get this done. This new referral process actually starts today. So you don't have to wait. You can start effective today. I won't be in the office to reply to your email, but you can start. Do I still need to send any referrals through Unitas? You can if you want to. If you have that platform available, you sure may, but you don't have to. Do you get feedback with your referral? Not really, unless you ask. And that comes with a caveat. If you ask, comes with, did I get that ROI signed by your client? Because remember, I work with 3 attorneys, okay? If not, I at least plan to let you know, referral received, forwarding to attorney, okay? So you know that at least we got it. And will my referral always, hang on to the questions. Will my referral always go to the same attorney? Yes, Alexis will get Oklahoma City and Candy will get Tulsa unless they need a specific type of law required that they do not possess skills. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Can you very briefly review the situations that you can't help people, or would you just want the providers to just send everybody to you, or do you still want us to filter?
I'll go over that.
I actually, right now, because I will tell you how many referrals we received so far this year is 6 for Tulsa and 0 for Oklahoma City. I actually want you guys to send us everybody. Now, attorneys might tell you otherwise. Cover your ears.
No.
But
Yeah.
I want you to send everybody and let me screen and talk to them, because at least I will tell them, hey, we may not be able to help you, but let me refer you here. Let me tell you what all we do so I can educate, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
And, yes, ma'am.
Do you still need every referral to say it's a MIECHV client?
I really like that MIECHV in there just because, but I know that you guys will email me and follow this process will be that. But if you want to insert, hey, I'm part of the MIECHV program, here's my referral, that would help me tremendously, because that kind of covers me from ever making a mistake and putting somebody in the project that is not part of the project. And I will take that as if, so I'm basically replacing that email for having received it through the Unitas portal. So, and I have something in written form that I can include in the case. If you don't have any further, I'm sorry, yes.
Is this the same for this one?
No escuché. I mean,
That was my next question. How many?
Was doing for Cross Culazo, there were very specific, qualifications, who qualifies in order to refer to you. Is this still one apply for this?
yes, they have to be your participant. They have to be a citizen resident unless they're a victim of violence. And we cannot have a conflict of interest. Mainly.
So when we did this PDSA previously, it seemed there was a hiccup and sometime throughout that there was not staff adequate, because I feel like we really ramped up the referrals, and then we were hearing from our clients that there was like a wait list or someone wouldn't be available. Has that been addressed? So if we begin to send these referrals in a higher volume, that will be addressed.
Okay, there was a moment in time that you guys were telling us. You guys were sending like 50 to 60 referrals in a month. And honestly, that's too much for us. But if I will make a commitment to at least contact them and let them know that, hey, you're in process for us to reach out to you, just give me more time. But my commitment to you is that within 2 weeks, we will contact them. If not, please call me and let me know.
So I am Keisha, and like Laura said, I am the medical legal partnerships program developer, which is a long title to basically say associate director. And in answer to your question, we prefer all the referrals to come in. And if we cannot assist them, if we start getting 50, 60, 70, 100 referrals, and we have 2 attorneys and we cannot assist them, we may not be able to physically go and assist them, but we're always going to send them some information that they can help themselves. So please send the referrals. The type of things that we don't help with, first is if there's a conflict of interest. We can't tell your client or your consumer if they're the type of conflict that there is. But I can tell you generally it means we represent the other side in something. Okay, I can say that in a general type of situation, but we can't say that specific to somebody. We represented the other side, or we represented a party somehow in Oklahoma. In that case, we cannot do a conflict of interest. We don't represent anybody criminal. If it's a criminal matter, they have access to a public defender. That is another avenue that they can go and get some assistance with. If DHS is involved. And what I mean by that is if DHS is taking the children, we cannot assist. We can potentially help with the divorce, but most of your courts will say, no, we're just gonna solve this case until the children have been placed somewhere. So then we generally don't get involved. But I would prefer you go ahead and send that referral, just because there are tons of other issues that we can help with. One of the hardest parts of being an attorney for us is spotting the legal issue sometimes. So I don't expect you to always be able to spot that legal issue. Domestic violence, you can send that. Divorces, you can send that. Housing issues. This may be something that you may run across a lot of, is if they have an infestation, rodents or insects of some sort. That may be something that we can help them with. Okay. If they are being unfairly charged late fees, courts are not allowing these excessive late fees, and we've been able to get some of that off of them. That is something that we can definitely help with. What we cannot help with is you get the attorney for free. There may be filing fees. There may be fees that the courts charge. They would have to pay for that. So we try to, let them know that information. There are tons of other things. Social Security, we help with those things. We help with Social Security disability. We help with income, other types of income support. An IEP. We just recently had a child that looked like he was about to be kicked out of school. The school did not address his IEP or updated his IEP for 3 years. And we were literally gearing to have to go to court to fight for this child, to be able to keep this child in school. And the state sent their attorney, and basically we sat down and they was like, oh, no, let's get this IEP updated. Child stayed in school. They addressed that issues and the child was not being kicked out. That is something that we would be happy to help with. So there's a ton of other things that you may not or may not see that we're going to be able to assist with. So if they have any type of need, any type of legal need that you think that they may have, go ahead, send that referral in and we'll try to help them out. And again, if we cannot assist them, if we're getting that many referrals, we love it. And we will assess, we do a staffing. Just so you know, we take the attorneys will get the cases, they will look at them, they will come to the table with 20 other attorneys, just throwing it out there. It could be 5, it could be 20 other attorneys, and we will review these cases. And it may be something that, let's give them some advice and counsel, and they're going to be okay. Okay, They might need some divorce help, a little bit of paperwork, it's a simple divorce, everybody's agreeable to everything, we can help them with that paperwork. We'll get it right, not the people who are standing with the little cardboards on the side of the road. I'm just, as private attorney before, I used to charge 3 times as much to go fix that stuff. Okay, because they would do that, so sorry, side note. Other things that, tons of things that we can help with, so we would love for you to go ahead and send those referrals. I talked to Pilar, we're gonna get with you guys, give you some more info on types of things that we can help with. And if you have any other questions, I would love to just answer those. But I think you got quite a few of them. I know it's lunchtime, so I don't hold anybody back. Anybody, please? Thank you, guys.
Well, we have time for questions.
Oh, go ahead, questions? No, yes, ma'am.
When you talk about if they don't know what they have.
Wow. Okay. Usually by the time to me they have an issue that they already have in mind, but okay, let's say somebody is getting ready to be evicted or they're having you're gonna see this before us, if somebody's being evicted, one of the things that we helped with a veteran with, he was facing eviction, but he was the sole heir of his mother's estate, and he didn't know how to go about taking care of that. We initially got involved to try to assist him with that eviction, then we see that he has this situation with the probate, we were able to get involved, get that estate probated. He was able to sell the house that was in the probate, he was able to access funds that was in mother's bank account, and he was able to stave off any type of eviction. So he went from quite literally $500 a month that he was getting to over $80,000 in paying. If that is something along those lines. If you go in and you, like I said, that infestation of some sort or mold, and they have been trying and they've been trying and they've been trying to get the landlord to do something, but you got a slump or unfortunately. That is something that we can come in and help with. You see signs of domestic violence, they may not know how to get out of it. Refer it, and we will give them some information on how to get out and then how to help them file for that BPO. It could be, like I said, they need help with Social Security. If you have a child who has able to collect, but they don't know how to go about it, we may be able to give them some information on that. It's really kind of hard to do it at just an elevator because there's so many different types. Okay. It could be any number of things.
I mean, they don't know.
Exactly, but once they get in and they start talking, then we may hear it. And we're like, oh, you need an issue with this. They've been unlawfully denied access to SNAP. They aren't getting their child support. Okay, just imagine if you can go.
If they're interested, not necessarily the big, but if they offer something like, I want to get evicted, if it's a pressing issue, they can put that in the email as a people prioritize them. And Mr. Bragg on Candy, he used the word eviction, I'm like a 70%, dismissal rate. Can you imagine 70% of our clients you take to dismiss an eviction? That's an amazing number. And so, both them or part of their own, you're not gonna get that kind of, so they need an attorney. No. Well, allow us to do this. We have a trainings, we have this, we have dig to uncover what other issues there may be. We also have I provide you guys with my option. Please go through that. And we also have a matrix, once we sit down and listen to them, where you guys can come on. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Safety times allow us to do that. I don't know for you. And if you just focus on the areas of and then
If I can also throw this out real quick, One of the things that we started doing is costs and fees, so you may have a client who has costs and fees, and that's holding them up to the court for any number of things, and that's holding them up from being able to proceed on in their lives. If they qualify, we can generally get some of those dismissed. So,
Form, they have to say, this name, the last name, but they say your last name is the first. Would that be a removal?
that would be an appropriate referral, and I'm gonna tell you, you don't tell the client that dealing with the Department of Vital Statistics is a pain in our rear ends. So I'm gonna tell you how much more of a pain in their rear ends it's gonna be. So definitely refer that, because I will get that done. And I have a question over here.
I had two quick questions. I'm gonna see if you could provide some kind of PDF, maybe with Pilar's contact information in case the client wasn't ready in that visit for us to make the email, if they can maybe then have that contact directly to, if you feel like that's appropriate. And then secondly, is this gonna be a process or is it program specific if we're gonna do the email versus the Unite Us platform?
That's a Pilar question. That last part. That's gonna be a Pilar question, who manages that, but yes, yes, you can get a copy of this. We're gonna alter it a little bit to add Alexis's and Candace's emails on there. Just, Pilar is gonna be your main contact point, but in case Pilar decides to go on vacation, somebody else is gonna be there to take those. And then,
Legal issues you can address that might kind of trigger what we've done previously.
we'll get that to you, yes, and then I'm also going to offer, I just told Pilar this, yesterday, what I have been offering to some of our partners, and I'd love to offer it to you all, is if I get 20-30 minutes, there's a training tool, MLP training tool that I've done with several partners, that it helps you to identify some of the legal issues that you will see, and you'll be like, oh, no, you need to go see, go talk to these attorneys, they'll help you. At some point, then I can go over that PowerPoint and it'll help you identify some of the major things that you can refer somebody to. And so I'll get that out to you, and yes, if that helps. Something else we don't do right now, immigration. Unfortunately, we lost our two immigration attorneys, I think about a month and a half ago, and we haven't hired anybody else new, and it's a process, so we can't take that in right now. But and we're here and we are motivated. We are here because we want to help people. If I can say this real quick, when I grew up with my mother and single mom, I grew up, and if she needed somebody like me, she'd been out of luck. So that's why I do this. That's why a lot of our attorneys do this. They want to help the people who cannot get in help and get them into that court access. And that's exactly why I think you guys are here too. Yes, ma'am.
So I know it's in immigration cases, but you guys have to recommend, because we do encounter families that are dealing with immigration are overwhelmed. And, since you guys have like a list, usually we're like, oh, send everybody to Catholic Church, but Catholic churches can't do it all.
We do not have a list that we send people to. We will end up generally sending them to the private bar. And that's a thing that LSC has done. We don't keep a specific list for a specific attorney. Now, if they get a hold of somebody like myself, a friend of mine says, hey, not through Lasso, but hey, I need a recommendation for this. I need a recommendation for criminal law. Okay, hey, I know this person, and this person. I'll talk to them. But that is somebody who's not contacted me out, but we will send them information. We'll send them a brochure. We'll send them some sort of information, unless there is a conflict, at which point all they're going to get from us is, I'm sorry, there's a conflict. We can't help you. We hate doing that, but there's that situation. Another type of fee generating case is just FYI, fee generating cases. So you're like, what is that? They've been in a car wreck, somebody hit them, and they don't know what to do. We can't take that on because there's so many attorneys out there who will take that on and not charge them unless they win. So something along those lines that we don't take that on.
So it's okay for us to send immigration that let them go ahead and talk to Pilar.
They can talk to Pilar, and hopefully we can at least send them some information, but we will not be able to represent them. And definitely if it's an immigration issue and there's domestic violence in there, then we may be able to help them with that. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess my question is heading to that. Can you, for any of the topics that you have covered, if they're non-citizens, can you assist them?
So it's like custody.
I'm sorry, it does require you to be a citizen unless, of course, there is, illness around.
Any legal documentation, like we have quite a few clients from Nepal that have visas,
Mhm.
would you be able to sort of?
Yes. If they're here legally, then we can, so you have some, there's always, exceptions to the rule, right? So yes, we do have some exceptions to the rule. So we have, if somebody had their green card, they had their, visas or something along those lines, and we may be able to find a way to be able to help them, okay? But I would prefer, go ahead and send that referral and let us make that decision. Because we will always try to see if we can figure it out. Very rarely do we send somebody away. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys are enjoying this. We enjoy coming and being able to meet with you. Thank you. Thank you.
So this is part of that care coordination sustainment effort. We do have some additional funds that are actually coming from our partners at the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness that are paying for the LASSO contract to stay open and for this new investigation and the sooner start streamlining the referral process. I did want to highlight that this funding does not have the MIECHV stipulation attached, other than the fact the scope of the work involves MIECHV funded programs. So I know some of you have clients that are not technically MIECHV funded, they're still eligible. So if you're a MIECHV funded program, which all of you are, you would be in the room, your clients are eligible. So don't worry about the MIECHV label necessarily. Send the client that way. You can put MIECHV in there so that it gets this prioritized access. So they are eligible. Thank you, Lasso, for joining us to put faces to names. And yeah, I help. Did I get it right? I help screener. I know that a lot of you use that in your past PSAs. So we'll work with our team and come up with people that we can circulate and maybe even recirculate that I help screener to the extent that that may be helpful. Okay, we're at the lunch break and we're almost on time. So let's be back as the agenda indicated at 1 o'clock. Any advice here for lunch venues, Lisa?
Get a list of about 20 places.
Okay, check your email. You should have a list of about 20 places on phone. So good luck.
We got actually 2 folks who won. We got a tie. So all the bragging rights go to PCCT's Spicy Senoritas. And Children First Flower Power. So wonderful, wonderful work. I'll go ahead and quick run through the answers. So you know that if it's gonna bother you, keep you awake at night. The first Broadway musical question was Hamilton, Schuyler Sisters. Number 2, the average days of PTO is 17, which is 4 days lower than a few decades ago in the US. So, Arbeit is the word for work in German. The most common college major is business. The magazine from The Devil Wears Prada is Runway. I'm super impressed how many people do that. The person who cursed us with a 40-hour work week is Henry Ford. The character from The Office is Phyllis. The founding father who said early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise is Benjamin Franklin. The song we heard at the end is by Rihanna, and the mentor who said do or do not, there is no try is Yoda. Master Yoda. All right, so hopefully you're getting work done on these surveys if you've not yet completed them. It's so helpful for us to hear from you, and this is really going to kickstart our work in the domain of workforce development. Before we share out our PDSAs, Dr. Dalsky is going to come back up and share a little bit about how your agency could get trained in CSER if that's something that you are interested in doing.
Okay, congratulations again to the trivia winners. I'm not bitter. So just briefly, I'll just give a really quick overview. All of the information related to CSER can be found at the Oklahoma CSER.org
MIECHV.com website. But essentially, there are a few different levels of training available. Typically the intro training, which is a full day, is offered in between 6 to 10 hours for a full day training. If folks want to or need to do it virtually, we break it up into 2 half days because lots of time in front of a computer. And then that can accommodate up to 100 people. If people are interested in going sort of the next level and there's supervisors in the agency that want to take the advanced CSERT information, that will accommodate up to 40 supervisors, and that's a 4-hour additional training. And then we have a process of adding on, again, if this is something that is wanted by the agency or the group, 10 consultation calls. And so typically those take place twice a month for an hour, so that would be for 5 months. We have had agencies that elected to do it for a longer span of time, so maybe once a month, so they would prefer 1 call for 10 months, just to have exposure to a consultant for a little bit longer, and so there's flexibility for that. But there are different stages of the training, and so the consultation call series will accommodate between 12 and 16 individuals at that point. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about some PDSAs. I'd like for you to just come up, tell us a little bit about your SMART aim, and just tell us what you're going to do. What's your idea about? Doesn't have to be anything real formal. How about if we start with LCDA? Yay! I'm gonna be running through. Who was that? Jerry Springer who ran through the audience. I've been Vanna White today.
We're having a new staff, so we wanted just to increase the cohesion and belonging through plan activities. We almost completed, I think it's one more staff that complete a scale, this measurement in cohesion, and we're gonna do plan joint optional activities. So we're gonna have a tally of who participates and how often. And one of the, let's see, what is in here? So if you know, someone that can participate, that will be the disruptor. And we're gonna have the percentage of staff participating in the plan activities, and with that, providing formal support for providers and emotional well-being.
Thank you, Patty. Now we're gonna go to, go ahead and talk. All right, now Oklahoma City C1.
Hello, our PDSA title is Evaluation of Training, Assessing, Addressing Vicarious Trauma. Our primary driver is to provide formal supports for home visitors' emotional well-being. And why this change was chosen is the nurse home visitors recently have shared critical family stories such as domestic violence, forced drug use, etc., that have impacted them. The idea is to give the nurses tools to navigate vicarious trauma that they're exposed to. And our aim statement is from the beginning to the end of the project, increase the average compassion satisfaction and decrease the burnout and secondary traumatic stress by 10%. It will be done through the process measure of completing the CSERT training with outcome measures as 3 ProQual scales, one being done in June, one a week after the training, and one at the end of the PDSA, and then 2 Holmes race stress scales for adults, one before the training and one at the end of the PDSA. And the disruptor measures will be nurse absenteeism or PTO, and then nurse turnover.
All right, now PCCT, Stacey.
All right, so our change theory is to reduce burnout. So our way that we've identified to do that was that we're going to identify at least 5 forms in ETO that need to be changed, combined, or eliminated in order to streamline that and reduce stress of the parent educators. Repetitive entering data or kind of, the stress of all of that, things not being where they were or changes in that. We're also going to measure job satisfaction to reduce burnout. And so we're going to do a survey with the parent educators at the beginning and at the end. So we're going to just do I think it's like 10 or 11 questions that measures their job satisfaction. And we have, like I said, we'll do that at the beginning and the end. So we have the parent educators are sending in, we're kind of keeping a running record of any forms in ETO as they come across them that need changed or things like that. And then we'll work to get those edited and et cetera. Some disruptors that could come is staff turnover, staff absentee, technology problems, changes with ETO that we weren't aware of. Do you have any others, Stella? Yeah. Yeah, tech issues, things like that. And so I think with the job satisfaction survey, some of the things we identified as possible disruptors were, like we said, turnover. So we have new employees that may not really know, some of the answers to those questions or be able to answer those truthfully at that point.
All right, Cap Tulsa.
So we're wanting to see if we can use technology to streamline some of the documentation process and save time for the PEs. And so our idea is going to be to use an app for the PEs to be able to transcribe directly after a visit their observations. And then to be able to go back and use like a Word document to copy and paste into the ETO system. And so a couple possible disruptors are whether that technology is working or whether they have that internet access to be able to use it on the field. And also, as we know, with some transcriptions are better than others. And so we're wanting to see if we're going to ask if they had to spend so much time editing that it took away that time saver, or if they were able to pretty much copy and paste and use what they had transcribed. And we would also like to check, we've got over half of our PEs, if English is their second language. So we also want to see if that app is able to do the translation into English if they made their recordings in another language. And so then our ideal would be if we could ask questions in ETO, the documentation touch point itself, so that it wouldn't cause the PEs to have to spend extra time. And if they're able to just answer, did you use the app and how long did the documentation process work? And were you able to use it for translation?
All right, Cap Tulsa, thank you. I will say one thing that they're going to do in their project is they're not going to use any personal identifiers about their clients when they're doing their transcription. They're going to say the client, the child, and so forth with no personal identifiers. All right, who's next? Parent Promise.
So we're basically doing the exact same thing as Parent Child Center. And so we're gonna be identifying needed changes in ETO, and the same thing is to reduce frustration, looking at the different forms and things like that and see where questions are duplicated and see if somehow we can mainstream that or streamline it. And then do surveys with the staff to see if the stress is going down, frustration is going down, if we're able to reduce some of that. So we're doing this. Yeah.
All right. Right, Marie Daddy.
We are going to try to increase job satisfaction by 10% by the end of this cycle through a set of surveys and identifying job satisfaction and job stressors. We're gonna measure things from financial considerations, flexibility in scheduling, time management, trainings, supports in place from administration of our agency. Just, there's about 14 or so areas we're gonna look at and hopefully gather some good data. Get some good data so we can make some changes from the support level to support our fees. Oh, some disruptors, if they refuse to answer honestly, or if they refuse to answer at all, if they have any leaves or absenteeism or turnover in staff, some things that we've identified. But this is our first time using Red Cap, so we're excited to try something new.
Thank you. Is this Oklahoma City Public Schools?
Right here.
You're PCCT, where's Oklahoma City Public Schools? Oh, okay. Who's speaking for you?
So what we're doing is, we're trying to minimize time spent doing paperwork and increase time available for home visits. The start aim compared to the starting level of restoration. By the end of the PDS period, these levels will decline by 5% after identifying the need behind each form and recommending changes to ETO. The outcome ensures its restoration scale administered approximately monthly. Final outcome list of forms, touch points, target for change. Process measure, number of staff involved in each meeting, number of hours each month spent in meetings, and about the PDSA. So we are having to spend more time on documentation because we have a lot of touch points. So instead of having a lot of touch points, documentation can be along with milestones. We are doing parent-child interaction, and that's along with milestones. Or if we have to update any goals, if you say any goals to not be updated, yes, and then it can open up like a little box next to it. Instead of going to a different touch point, save it, and then process the goal.
All right, thank you. And finally, we have Tulsa, C1.
The title of ours is Gaining Understanding of Influences on Job Satisfaction for Nurse Home Visitors. Our primary driver is reducing burnout. Yes, sir. And then our SMART aim is by the end of the PDSA period, identify at least 3 factors that influence job satisfaction and identify at least 1 factor that could be changed to help improve job satisfaction in future PDSA. Factors that influence job satisfaction in nurse home visitors is our outcome measure. And then we are going to, let's see, what's our disruptor here? Staff turnover, staff on PTO. Tools is to create a survey for job satisfaction for nurse home visitors and the children first schools.
All right, thank you. David, you're up.
So I mentioned when we arrived this morning that you can feel the energy in the air. Maybe the segment's going too far, but definitely it's a different sense, right, to be here in person. I get excited though, especially when I hear you report back your PDSAs, and I'm always thrilled at the level of innovation and boldness that these programs have. So really excited to see how your AI approach works out. I'm excited to see how the CSERP works out for the first time with one of our programs. Interested to learn about these factors that influence job satisfaction and what parts of the, you've already seen that we're working on this idea of streamlining forms 2 for your referral network process, and interested to hear what other forms and documentation might be improved. The lessons that you learned from your PSAs to complement what we're doing with the care coordination sustaining the project. So I don't have any other I'm sure I have any wise words for you, other than to say you've got a big cheerleader with us and we're here to facilitate, so, obviously we'll be at your elbow in the monthly meetings and in the rounding calls, but in between those interactions, just let us know if we can facilitate in any way. I gave an example with the Oklahoma City C1 group. There are a few barriers there with getting CSER off the ground, so big or small, if you've got issues that you're trying to work through, please let us know. I'm available by email or by phone, and happy to hop on a random call if I'm not already scheduled to be there, so be bold and go forth and look forward to seeing you again in 6 months, whether that's in Oklahoma City or Tulsa or in between, we don't know yet, but we'll figure that out. And I guess we'll see you on the June monthly call, right? Yeah. The June monthly call where we can start reporting out some initial findings, at least your implementation steps. So as promised, we're letting you out early, a lot earlier than anticipated, but you're such an efficient group, you earned it. Thank you to the organizers for today. I want to especially thank Lisa Tunney, who's in the back, who did everything behind the scenes. Lisa MIECHV, I think it's Tyler Tunney, for making sure that the agenda was in order. Our guests from Lasso, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for the work that you're doing with these families, and also to Ashley Galaxy, and Caesar. We hope to be going from the over the next 18 to 24 months. So, okay, have a great rest of your day, and see you on next monthly call. Okay, to stop share and close down Zoom.
There's one last slide.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Yeah, we can see that. Wanted to get.
Oh, yeah, I'll be right back.
Thank you.